10th Insight by James Redfield. Chapter 10. Holding the Vision. I turned and looked at him in the moonlight, observing the long hair, the scarred face. "Where are the others?" he whispered. "We were separated," I replied. "Did you see what happened?" He moved his face closer. "Yes, I was watching from the hill." "Where do you think they'll go?" I thought for a moment. "They'll head toward the falls." He motioned for me to follow, and we started in that direction. After several minutes had passed, he glanced back as he walked and said, "When you were sitting together at the entrance back there, your energy pooled and then swelled far out into the valley. What were you doing?" In an attempt to explain, I summarized the whole story. Finding Will and entering the other dimension, seeing Williams and running into Joel and Maya, and especially meeting Curtis and trying to bring in the World Vision to defeat Feynman. "Curtis was back there with you at the mouth of the canyon?" David asked. "Yes, and Maya and Charlene, although I think there are supposed to be 7 of us." He gave me another quick glance, almost chuckling. All of the tense, pent-up anger he had displayed in town seemed to have completely disappeared. "So you found the ancestors too, didn't you?" I hurried up to walk beside him. "You reached the other dimension?" "Yes, I saw my soul group and witnessed my birth vision. And just as you, I remembered what happened before, that we've all come back to bring in the World Vision. And then, I don't know how, when I was watching all of you back there in the moonlight, it was as if I was with you, was part of your group. I saw the World Vision around me." He had stopped in the shadow of a large tree that blocked the moon, his face rigid and cast back. I turned to face him. "David, when the group of us were together back there, and we brought in the World Vision, why didn't it stop Feynman?" He moved forward into the light, and immediately I recognized him as the angry chief who had rebuked Maya. Brockhart expression shifted, and he burst out laughing. "The key aspect of this vision," he said, "is not the mere experience of it, although that's hard enough. It's how we project this vision of the future, how we hold it for the rest of humanity. That's what the 10th Insight is really all about. You didn't hold the vision for Feynman and the others in a way that would help them wake up." He looked at me a moment longer, then said, "Come on, we have to hurry." After we had traveled perhaps half a mile, a bird of some kind cried out toward our right, and David stopped abruptly. "What was that?" I asked. He cocked his head as the cry again filled the night. "That's a screech owl, signaling the others that we are here." I gave him a blank expression, remembering how strange the animals had been acting ever since I arrived in the valley. "Does anyone in that group know the animal signs?" he asked. "I don't know, maybe Curtis?" "No, he's too scientific." I then remembered that Maya had mentioned following the sounds of birds when she had found us in the cave. Perhaps Maya. He looked at me questioningly. "The physician you mentioned, who uses visualization in her work?" "Yes, good, that's perfect. Let's do what she does and pray." And looked at him as the owl cried out again. "What?" "Let's visualize. That she remembers the gift of the animals." "What is the gift of the animals?" A trace of anger flashed across his face, and he paused for a moment, closing his eyes, obviously trying to shake off the emotion. "Haven't you understood that when an animal shows up in our lives, it is a coincidence of the highest order? I told him about the rabbit and the flock of crows and the hawk, which had shown up as I had first entered the valley, and then about the bobcat cub, the eagle, and the young wolf that had appeared later. Some of them even showed up when we saw the world vision. He nodded expectantly. I knew something significant was happening, I said, but I didn't know exactly what to do except to follow some of them. Are you saying that all these animals had a message for me? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. How do I know what the message is? It's easy. Because of the particular kind of animal you are attracting at any one time. Each species that crosses our paths tells us something about our situation, what part of ourselves we must call upon to handle the circumstances we face. Even after everything that's happened, I said, that's hard to believe. A biologist would say animals are primarily robots, operating on dumb instinct. Only because animals reflect our own level of consciousness and expectation. If our level of vibration is low, the animals will merely be there with us, performing their usual ecological functions. When a skeptical biologist reduces animal behavior to mindless instinct, he sees the restriction that he himself has put upon the animal. But as our vibration shifts, the actions of the animals that come to us become ever more synchronistic, mysterious, and instructional. I just stared. Squinting, he said, the hair that you saw was pointing out a direction for you both physically and emotionally. When I talked to you in town, you seemed depressed and fearful, as though you were losing faith in the insides. If you watch a wild rabbit for a long time, you can perceive that it models how to really face our fear, so that we can later move past it into creativity and abundance. A rabbit lives in close proximity to animals that feed on it, but it handles the fear and stays there and is still very fertile and productive and upbeat. When a rabbit appears in our lives, it is a signal to find the same attitude within ourselves. This was the message to you. Its presence meant you had the opportunity to remember the medicine of rabbit and to fully look at your own fear and move beyond. And because it occurred during the beginning of your trip, it set the tone of your whole adventure. Hasn't your trip been both fearful and abundant? I nodded. He added, sometimes it means that the abundance can be of a romantic nature too. Have you met anyone? I shrugged, remembering the new energy I had felt with Charlene. Maybe in a way. What about the crows I saw and the hawk that I followed when I found Will? Crows are the holders of the laws of spirit. Spend time with crows, and they will do amazing things that always increase our perception of spiritual reality. Their message was to open up, to remember the spiritual laws that were presenting themselves to you in this valley. Seeing them should have prepared you for what was to come. And the hawk? Hawks are alert and observant, ever vigilant for the next bit of information, the next message. Their presence means that it is important at that time to increase our alertness. Often they signal that a messenger is close. He cocked his head. You mean it was foretelling the presence of Will? Yes. David went on to explain why the other animals I had seen had been drawn my way. Cats, he told me, implore us to remember our ability to intuit and to self-heal. The bobcat cub's message, arriving as it did, just before meeting Maya, was to signal that an opportunity to heal was near. Similarly, an eagle soars to great heights and represents an opportunity to actually venture into the higher realms of the spirit world. When I saw the eagle on the ridge, David said, I should have prepared for seeing my soul group and for understanding more of my own destiny. Lastly, he told me, the young wolf was there to energize and awaken my latent instinct for courage and my ability to teach, so that I might find the words to help bring together the other members of the group. So the animals represent, I said, parts of ourselves we need to get in touch with. Yes, aspects of ourselves that we developed when we were those animals during the course of evolution, but have lost. I thought of the vision of evolution I had witnessed at the canyon entrance with the group. You're speaking of the way life progressed forward, species by species. We were there, David continued. Our consciousness moved through each animal as it represented the end point of life's development, and then leaped to the next. We experienced the way each species views the world, which is an important aspect of the complete spiritual consciousness. When a particular animal comes around, that means we're ready to integrate its consciousness into our waking awareness again. And I'll tell you something. There are some species that we aren't even close to catching up with. That's why it's so important to preserve every life form on this earth. We want them to endure not just because they are a part of the balanced ecosphere, but because they represent aspects of ourselves that we're still trying to remember. He paused for a moment, looking out into the night. This is also true of the rich diversity of human thought, represented by the various cultures around the planet. None of us knows exactly where the current truth of human evolution resides. Each culture around the world has a slightly different worldview, a particular mode of awareness, and it takes the best of all cultures, integrated together, to make a more ideal whole. An expression of sadness crossed his face. It's too bad that 400 years had to pass before the real integration of the European and native cultures could begin. Think of what has happened. The Western mind lost touch with the mystery and reduced the magic of the deep woods to lumber and the mystery of wildlife to pretty animals. Urbanization has isolated the great majority of people, so we now think a journey into nature is a stroll on the golf course. Do you realize how few of us have experienced the mysteries of the wilderness? Our national parks represent all that is left of the great cathedral forests and rich plains and high deserts that once characterized this continent. There are too many of us now for the wild areas that still exist. In many parks there are waiting lists over a year long. And still, the politicians seem bent on selling off more and more of the public lands. Most of us are forced to draw from decks of animal cards to see what animal signs are coming into our lives, instead of being able to take quests into the truly wild areas of the world to experience the real thing. Suddenly the screech owl's cry erupted so close that the sound made me jump involuntarily. David was squinting impatiently. Can we pray now? Listen, I said. I don't know what you mean. Do you want to pray or visualize? He tried to calm his voice. Yes, I'm sorry. Impatience seems to be a residual emotion I have with you. He took a breath. The 10th insight. Learning to have faith in our intuitions, remembering our birth intention, holding the world vision. All of it is about understanding the essence of real prayer. Why does every religious tradition assume a form of prayer? If God is the one all-knowing, all-powerful God, then why would we have to beseech his help or impel him to do something? Why wouldn't he just set up commandments and covenants and judge us accordingly, taking direct action when he wanted to, not us? Why would we have to ask for his special intervention? The answer is that when we pray in the correct fashion, we are not asking God to do something. God is inspiring us to act in his place to enact his will on the earth. We are the emissaries of the divine on this planet. True prayer is the method, the visualization that God expects us to use in discerning his will and implementing it in the physical dimension. His kingdom come. His will be done, on earth, as it is in heaven. In this sense, every thought, every expectation, all of what we visualize happening in the future, is a prayer and tends to create that very future. But no thought or desire or fear is as strong as a vision that is in alignment with the divine. That's why bringing in the world vision and holding it is important, so we will know what to pray for, what future to visualize. I understand, I said. How do we help Maya become aware of the owl? What did she say to do when she talked to you about healing? She said, we should visualize patients remembering what they intended to do with their lives, but still hadn't done. She said that real healing springs from a renewed sense of what one wants to do once health is regained. When they remember, then we can also join them in holding this more specific plan. Let's do the same now, David said. Hopefully, her original intention was to follow the sound of this bird. David closed his eyes, and I followed his lead, trying to visualize an image of Maya awakening to what she was supposed to do. After a few minutes, I opened my eyes and David was staring at me. The owl screamed again right above our heads. Let's go, he said. 20 minutes later, we were standing on the hill above the falls. The owl had followed, calling out periodically, and had stationed itself 50 feet to our right. In front of us, the pool glistened in the moonlight, muted only by wisps of fog that drifted along its surface. We waited for 10 or 15 minutes without speaking. Look, there, David said, pointing. Among the rocks to the right of the pool, I could make out several figures. One of them looked up and saw us. It was Charlene. I waved and she recognized me. Then David and I made our way down the rocky slope to where they were standing. Curtis was ecstatic at seeing David, grabbing his arm. We'll stop these people now. For a moment, they looked at each other in silence. Then Curtis introduced Maya and Charlene. At first, we were confused and lost in the darkness. But then I heard the owl and I knew. The presence of an owl, David said, means that we have the opportunity to see through any possible deception by others, and if we avoid the tendency to harm or lash out, we can, like the owl, cut through the darkness to hold a higher truth. Maya was watching David closely. You look familiar, Maya said. Who are you? He looked at her questioningly. You were told my name. It's David. She grabbed his hand gently. No, I mean, who are you to me, to us? I was there, he said, during the wars. But I was so full of hatred for the whites that I didn't support you. I didn't even listen to you. We're doing it differently now, I said. David glared at me reflexively, then caught himself and softened, as he had before. Back in that war, I had even less respect for you than the others. You wouldn't take a stand. You ran away. It was fear, I replied. I know. For several more minutes, everyone talked with David about the emotions we were feeling, discussing everything we could remember about the tragedy of the war on the Native Americans. David went on to explain that his soul group was made up of mediators, and that he had come this time to work through his anger at the European mentality, and then to work for the spiritual recognition of all indigenous cultures and the inclusion of all people. Charlene glanced at me, then turned to David. You're the 5th member of this group, aren't you? Before he could answer, we felt a vibration racing through the ground under our feet. It sent irregular ripples across the surface of the pool. Accompanying the tremor was another eerie melodious whine that filled the forest. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw flashlights moving on the hill 50 feet above us. They're here, Curtis whispered. I turned to see Feynman at the edge of an overhang directly above our heads. He was adjusting a small dish antenna on what looked like a portable computer. Focus on us and try to fine-tune the generator that way, Curtis said. We've got to get out of here. Maya reached over and touched his arm. No, please, Curtis. Maybe it will work this time. David moved closer to Curtis, then said lowly, It can work. Curtis stared at him for a moment, then finally nodded his agreement, and we began to raise our energy again. As in the 2 previous attempts, I began to see higher self-expressions on every face, and then our soul groups appeared and merged into a circle. Around us, including for the first time the members of David's group. As the memory of the world vision returned, we were again pulled into the overall intent to transfer energy and knowledge and awareness into the physical dimension. Also, as before, we saw the fearful polarization occurring in our time, and the panoramic vision of the positive future that would succeed it once the special groups formed and learned how to intercede, how to hold the vision. Suddenly another tremor shook the ground violently. "Stay with the vision," Maya shouted. "Hold the image of how the future can be." I heard a fissure tear through the ground to my right, but I kept my concentration. In my mind, I again saw the world vision as a force of energy that was emanating outward from our group in all directions and pushing Feynman back away from us, defeating the energy of his fear vision. To my left, a huge tree ripped from its roots and crashed to the ground. "It's still not working," Curtis shouted, jumping to his feet. "No, wait," David said. He had been deep in thought, and now he reached out and grabbed Curtis, pulling him down beside him. "Don't you see what's wrong? We're treating Feynman and the others as if they are enemies, trying to push them back. Doing that actually strengthens them, because they have something to fight against. Rather than fighting them with the vision, we have to include Feynman and the operatives in what we're visualizing. In reality, there are no enemies. We're all souls in growth, waking up. We have to project the world vision toward them, as though they are just like us." I suddenly recalled seeing Feynman's birth vision. Now it all made perfect sense, the view of hell, understanding the obsessive trance states that humans use to ward off fear, seeing the ring of souls as they tried to intervene, and then observing Feynman's original intention. "He is one of us," I shouted. "I know what he intended to do." In actuality, he came to break through his need for power. He wanted to prevent the destruction that could be caused by the generators and the other new technology. He saw himself meeting with us in the darkness. He's the 6th member of this group. Maya leaned forward. "This works just like in the process of healing. We have to image him remembering what he is really here to do." She glanced at me. "That helps break the fear block, the trance, at every level." As we began to concentrate on including Feynman and his men, our energy leaped forward. The night became illuminated, and we could clearly see Feynman and 2 men on the hill. The soul groups seemed to move more closely into focus, appearing more human-like, while at the same time we became more luminescent like them. From the left, more soul groups seemed to be joining. "It's Feynman's soul group," Charlene said, "and the soul groups of the 2 men with him." As the energy increased, the massive hologram of the world vision again encircled us. "Focus on Feynman, and the others the way we focused on each other," Maya shouted. "Visualize that they remember." I turned slightly and faced the 3 men. Feynman was still working furiously at his computer, the other 2 men looking on. The hologram encircled them as well, especially the image of each person awakening at this historical moment to his or her true purpose. As we watched, the forest was cast in a perceptible field of swirling, amber energy, which seemed to pass through Feynman and his associates. Simultaneously, I saw the same wisps of white light that had protected Curtis and Maya and me hovering over the men, and afterward the white streaks of light grew in size and began to emanate outward in all directions, disappearing finally into the distance. After a few minutes, the ground tremors and strange sounds stopped. A breeze blew the last of the dust toward the south. One of the men stopped watching Feynman and eased away from us into the trees. For several seconds, Feynman continued to work on his keyboard, then gave up in frustration. He looked down at us and picked up the computer, cradling it gently with his left arm. With the other hand, he pulled out a handgun and began to walk our way. The other man, armed with an automatic weapon, followed. "Don't let go of the image," Maya cautioned. When they were 20 feet away, Feynman set the computer down and punched at the keyboard again, keeping the pistol ready. Several large rocks, loosened earlier, broke free and crashed into the pool. "You didn't come here to do this," Charlene said softly. The rest of us focused on his face, The operative, keeping his weapon aimed at us, walked closer to Feynman and said, "We can't do anything else here. Let's go." Feynman waved him off, then began to type angrily again. "Nothing is working," Feynman yelled at us. "What are you doing?" He looked at the operative. "Shoot them!" he screamed. "Shoot them!" For an instant, the man looked at us coldly. Then, shaking his head, he backed away and disappeared into the rocks. "You were born to prevent this destruction from happening," I said. He dropped the gun to his side and stared at me. For an instant his face lightened, appearing exactly as I had seen it during his birth vision. I could tell he was remembering something. Seconds later, a look of fright swept across his face, turning quickly into anger. He grimaced and held his stomach, then turned and reached onto the rocks beside him. Wiping his mouth, he raised the gun again. "I don't know what you're trying to do to me, but it won't work." He took several steps forward, then seemed to lose energy. The gun fell to the ground. "It doesn't matter, you know. There are other forests. You people can't be at all of them. I'm going to make this generator work. Do you understand? You're not taking this away from me." He stumbled backward a few feet, then turned and ran into the darkness. When we reached the hill above the bunker, a great wave of relief swept through the group. After Feynman had left, we had cautiously made our way back to the site of the experiment, not knowing what we would find. Now, as we looked, the bunker area was aglow with dozens of truck lights. Most of the vehicles bore the insignia of the Forest Service, although the FBI was represented, along with the local sheriff's department. I crawled forward several more feet on the crest of the hill and looked closely to see if anyone was being interrogated or held in any of the cars. They all looked empty. The door of the bunker was open, and officers seemed to be going in and out as if investigating a crime scene. "They've all left," Curtis said, leaning forward on his knees and gazing past the trunk of a large tree. "We stopped them." Maya turned and sat down. "Well, at least we stopped them here. They won't try the experiment again in this valley." "But Feynman was right," David said, looking at the rest of us. "They can go to some other place, and no one will know." He stood up. "I've got to go in there. I'll tell them the whole story." "Are you crazy?" Curtis said, walking up to him. "What if the government is part of this?" "The government is just people," David replied. "Not all of them are involved." Curtis stepped up closer. "There has to be another way. I'm not letting you go in there. There will be someone in one of those agencies who will listen to us," David said. "I'm sure of it." Curtis was silent. Charlene was leaning on a rock several feet away and said, "He's right. Someone could be in just the right position to help." Curtis shook his head, grappling with his thoughts. "That might be true, but you'll need someone with you who can accurately describe the technology." "That means you'll have to go too," David said. Curtis managed to return a smile. "Okay, I'll go with you, but only because we have an ace in the hole." "What?" David asked. "A guy that we left tied up back in a cave." David put a hand on his shoulder. "Come on, you can tell me about it on the way. Let's see what happens." After anxious goodbyes to the rest of us, they moved away to the right to approach the bunker site from another direction. Suddenly Maya whispered loudly for them to wait. "I'm going too," she said. "I'm a physician. People know me in the area. You might need a third witness." The three of them looked at Charlene and me, obviously wondering if we might join them as well. "Not me," Charlene said. "I think I'm needed elsewhere." I also declined and asked them not to mention us. They agreed and then walked away toward the lights. Left alone, Charlene and I met eyes. I recalled the deep feeling I had experienced toward her in the other dimension. She was taking a step toward me, about to speak, when both of us detected a flashlight 50 yards to our right. Carefully, we moved deeper into the trees. The light changed position and headed right toward us. We kept still and low to the ground. As the light approached, I began to hear a lone voice, someone apparently talking to himself. I knew this person. It was Joel. I caught Charlene's eye. "I know who it is," I whispered. "I think we should talk to him." She nodded. When he was 20 feet away, I called out his name. He stopped and shined his light toward us. Recognizing me immediately, he walked over and crouched down where we were. "What are you doing out here?" I asked. "There's not much left back there," he replied, pointing toward the bunker. "There's an underground laboratory over there that has been completely cleaned out." I thought I would try to go to the falls, but when I got out there in the dark, I changed my mind. "I thought you were leaving the area," I said. "You were so skeptical." "I know. I was going to leave, but I had a dream that disturbed me. I thought I'd better stay and try to help. The Forest Service people thought I was crazy, but then I ran into a deputy from the county sheriff's department. Someone had sent him a message, so we came out here together. That's when we found this laboratory." Charlene and I looked at each other. Then I briefly told Joel about the confrontation with Feynman and the eventual outcome. "They were creating that much damage?" Joel asked. "Was anyone hurt?" "I don't think so," I replied. "We were lucky. And how long ago did your friends go down there?" "Just a few minutes ago." He looked at both of us. "You're not going in yourselves?" I shook my head. I thought it would be better if we watched how the authorities handle all this, without their knowing. Charlene's expression confirmed that she felt the same way. "Good thinking," Joel said, looking back toward the bunker side. "I think I had better get back down there, though, just so they'll know the press is aware of those 3 witnesses." "How can I get in touch with you?" "We'll call you," Charlene said. He handed me a card, nodded to Charlene, and headed toward the bunker. Charlene caught my eye. "He was the 7th person in the group, wasn't he?" "Yeah, I think so." We were silent with our thoughts for a moment. Then Charlene said, "Come on, let's try to get back to town." We had walked for almost an hour when suddenly we heard the sound of songbirds, dozens of them, somewhere to our right. Dawn was just breaking and a cool mist rose from the forest floor. "Now what?" Charlene asked. "Look over there," I said. Through a break in the trees to the north was a huge old poplar, perhaps 8 feet in diameter. In the half-light of daybreak, the area around the tree appeared brighter somehow, as if the sun, still below the horizon, had been in position to burst through to radiate downward on that one spot. I experienced the sense of warmth that had grown so familiar. "What is it?" Charlene asked. "It's Will," I said. "Let's go over there." When we were within 10 feet, Will peeked around the tree, smiling broadly. He had changed. What was it? As I continued to study his body, I realized that his luminosity was the same, but he was now more clearly in focus. He hugged us both. "Were you able to see what happened?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "I was there with the soul groups. I saw everything. You're in sharper focus." "What did you do?" "Wasn't what I did," he replied. "It was what you and the group did, especially Charlene." "What do you mean?" Charlene asked. "When the 5 of you increased your energy and consciously remembered most of the world vision, you lifted this whole valley into a higher vibratory pattern. It rose closer to the vibratory level of the afterlife, which means that I now appear clearer to you, as you appear clearer to me. Even the soul groups will become more readily visible in this valley now. I looked hard at Will. Everything we've seen in this valley, everything that has happened, it's all the 10th insight, isn't it? He nodded. These same experiences are occurring to people all over the planet. After we grasp the first 9 insights, each of us is left at the same place, trying to live this reality day to day, in the face of what seems to be a growing pessimism and divisiveness all around us. But at the same time, we are continuing to gain a greater perspective and clarity about our spiritual situation, about who we really are. We know we are awakening to a much larger plan for planet Earth. The 10th is about maintaining our optimism and staying awake. We're learning to better identify and believe in our own intuitions, knowing that these mental images are fleeting recollections of our original intention, of how we wanted our lives to evolve. We wanted to follow a certain path in life, so that we could finally remember the truth that our life experiences are preparing us to tell and bring this knowledge into the world. We are now seeing our lives from the higher perspective of the afterlife. We know that our individual adventures are occurring within the context of the long history of human awakening. With this memory, our lives are grounded, put into context. We can see the long process through which we have been spiritualizing the physical dimension and what we have left to do. We'll pause momentarily and move closer to us. Now we will see if enough groups like this one come together and remember, if enough people around the world grasp the 10th. As we have seen, it is now our responsibility to keep the intention to ensure the future. The polarization of fear is still rising, and if we are to resolve it and move on, each of us must participate personally. We must watch our thoughts and expectations very carefully, and catch ourselves every time we treat another human being as an enemy. We can defend ourselves and restrain certain people, but if we dehumanize them, we add to the fear. We all are souls in growth. We all have an original intention that is positive, and we can all remember. Our responsibility is to hold that idea for everyone we meet. That's the true interpersonal ethic. That's how we uplift. That's the contagion of the new awareness that is encircling the planet. We either fear that human culture is falling apart, or we can hold the vision that we are awakening. Either way, our expectation is a prayer that goes out as a force that tends to bring about the end we envision. Each of us must consciously choose between these two futures. Will seemed to drift into thought, and in the background, against the far ridge toward the south, I caught sight again of the streaks of white light. With all that was happening, I said, I never asked you about these movements of white light. You know what they are? Will smiled and reached out and gently touched both of our shoulders. They're the angels, he said. They respond to our faith and vision and make miracles. They seem to be a mystery even to those in the afterlife. At that moment, I was seized by a mental image of a community. Somewhere in a valley much like this one, Charlene was there, and others, including many children. I think we are supposed to understand the angels next, Will continued, gazing out toward the north as if seeing an image of his own. Yes, I'm sure of it. Are you two coming? I gazed at Charlene, whose look confirmed that she had seen the same vision as I. I don't think so, she said. Not right now, I added. Without speaking, Will pulled us into a brief embrace, then turned and walked away. At first, I was reluctant to let him go, but I remained silent. A part of me realized this journey was far from over. Soon I knew we would see him again.